समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
The ailing and aging father of Air India Commander Captain Sumeet Sabharwal has decided to move the Supreme Court against what he has called the profoundly flawed preliminary investigation probe report into the crash. This even as sources say that on the same aircraft, the 787, that showed a sudden deployment of the rat as it was bound for Birmingham a few days ago, a second electrical anomaly has been observed. Remember, the Federation of Indian Pilots has written to the government asking that the 787 fleet be grounded for further inspections. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our focus on the aftermath of the Air India 171 crash continues, and these devastating images continue to haunt us. Captain Sumeet Sabharwal's aging father, he's 91 years old, has now prepared a writ to file in the Supreme Court. We have read and accessed this writ petition. In the petition, Captain Sabharwal's aging father argues that there has been a false narrative created about his son's suicidal intent. He, in fact, says that the preliminary investigation report focuses inordinately on the possibility of pilot error and ignores much more plausible systemic issues that could have beset the aircraft. Since then, there have been a series of incidents with 787 aircrafts across the world. In fact, most recently, a 787 plane that flew from Amritsar to Birmingham showed a sudden rat deployment. It was able to land without any incident, but sources are telling us that that particular aircraft has shown a second electrical anomaly on a different route. The Federation of Indian Pilots has asked the government to ground the 787 fleet till such time as fresh inspections are carried out. There has been yet no detailed response to that. But the writ petition that Captain Sumeet Sabharwal's father is taking to the Supreme Court, it has not yet been admitted, but it has been readied, basically asks for a judicial probe with independent experts to talk about all that has happened, this big legal development, and at a human level, a very moving development, because imagine a father in the twilight years of his life, now fighting for the reputation of his son. I'm joined by Captain Panicker. Captain Panicker, of course, has been an Air Force veteran, but he's also been a Dreamliner 787 pilot. And so thank you, sir, for your time. In many ways, this was expected. We were told that the father of Captain Sumeet Sabharwal was trying to make up his mind. He had written letters to the government. He had written emails to the Federation. The Federation has since argued with the government to please temporarily halt the running of the 787 fleet. None of that has moved, and now he's prepared a very lengthy writ petition that will be brought to the Supreme Court. We're in holiday season, not much of festivity for either Captain Sumeet's family or the families of those who died on board the ill-fated Air India 171 plane. How do you see the significance of this? Couple of points that are made in the petition is that the father argues that the probe panel is profoundly flawed, that it focuses inordinately on the possibility of pilot error, that it creates a false narrative of suicidal intent. Previously, in much detail, he has taken on all the allegations and whispers about his son having been divorced, his son having been disturbed after his mother died, and so on. To think of this 90-something man running from pillar to post, trying to get justice, not just for his son, but the families of all those who died on board that plane also deserve answers. What is the significance of this petition?
Okay, Barkha. First, let's examine what has currently happened. Okay, I think father has reached that stage at which he is not, if you remember, he had earlier petitioned the DGCA, and he had requested them through the ALPA and the FIP as to whether additional checks should be done on the Boeing 787 or not. I'm not sure whether these got an official response. Like I mentioned earlier on your show, for that particular request of his, it was up to the DGCA to decide as to whether additional checks are required, whether the aircraft within India should be grounded, whether additional uh, observations that have come out in the recent past because of incidents that have happened all across the world have impacted the 787 fleet in India also. So I do not think he's got an official response, and that is probably the reason why he has petitioned the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Now, there is absolutely no doubt that in the recent past, over the last couple of months, there have been a spate of Dreamliner incidents. What is worrying, what is profoundly worrying, is the deployment of the RAT.
Yeah.
The rat turbine, or the RAT as it is commonly called, is something like a weapon of last resort. It happens only when certain significant changes happens in the aircraft systems. Out of the 5 conditions that would trigger the automatic deployment of the RAT, what is relevant to us is a dual engine failure, or a failure of electrical systems, or a failure of all the hydraulic systems. Just to reiterate, there are 3 systems that concern hydraulics on the 787. They're all high pressure systems, they're 5,000 psi systems, and very, very powerful systems. Now, the RAT powers one of these systems, which would enable the aircraft to retain sufficient hydraulic control to be able to land the aircraft. The RAT also supplies electrical supply via these systems so that it gives you the essential services that are required to be able to land the aircraft safely. Now, the fact that the RAT has deployed on a couple of occasions in the recent past indicates that something has triggered it off. Now, what is triggered it off requires investigation.
So I want to just hold you there because we have the headline of the incident that took place a few days ago. This was the plane that was bound for Birmingham and it showed the sudden RAT deployment. There was, nobody knows why. And we are told by sources that on this same aircraft, there has been another snag, another incident connected with the electricals and delayed the flight on a different route. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention as you talk about the sudden RAT deployment. The other important part of this RAT deployment is that there are those, for example, Captain Amit Singh, who has also separately petitioned the court. He has argued that the CCTV image of the RAT deployed from the Air India 171, he's not convinced that that photograph taken from the CCTV from the third angle is the actual RAT of the aircraft that crashed. The third important point is that Captain Sumeet's father's writ petition also questions the lack of correlation, no time stamping of the RAT deployed in this crash with the crew input. So I just wanted to give you all of those inputs as you talk about the RAT.
The flight after it has gotten airborne, the Ahmedabad flight, the Air India 171, has just spent 32 seconds in the air. Okay, the RAT appeared to have deployed within the first 5 seconds of liftoff. Now, there is a certain amount of time before the systems or the indications which will trigger off the RAT deployment. Now, why the RAT is deployed needs to be investigated. It just cannot be, put off as to whether the RAT has deployed before the engine failure, has it deployed after the engine failure, has it deployed because of pilot action, has it deployed because of a FADEC intervention. Do remember that all these modern aircraft are extremely, extremely computer-centric. They are run by lines and lines, millions of lines of software code, and they have their own logics that determine as to what is the further course of action. So, coming back to the RAT.
Yeah.
In the case of Birmingham, the RAT has deployed during the final approach. During the final approach, do remember that the aircraft has gotten airborne from Amritsar. It's already probably flown over 9 hours, and it's on the final stages of its landing into Birmingham. There has been no electrical failure. There has been no engine failure. There has been no significant electrical event or otherwise which has triggered off any warning whatsoever. It is just that the RAT is deployed, and that is the first time that the indication has come into the cockpit on the ICAS that the RAT has been deployed. Since there was no other emergency. Everything else was under control. The pilots elected to go ahead and land, and a
Yeah.
safe landing was executed. Now, what we have to remember is that let's just take this case of this aircraft landing into Birmingham, being turned around after a certain amount of time, and doing the flight back. All commercial aircraft are under something called, they have a system called the minimum equipment list. Now, every commercial aircraft has got a system of redundancies. There is a main system, there is a standby system, there is a standby to the standby, and probably a standby to the standby to the standby, especially on those aircraft that fly extremely long durations of time, like the 777, the 787, and the 350, just to give you three examples.
Yeah.
So now, where you have the system of minimum equipment, suppose the main system is not working, and suppose you've got four components of that system which make that system work. It is possible that even if one out of these four is not working, you can still dispatch this aircraft safely under what we call a minimum equipment list to carry out a commercial flight with passengers and safely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this is a system that is being followed in commercial aircraft. Okay, simply because of the long duration of flights and the requirement of a large number of systems and their redundancies that are involved. Okay, so now once this aircraft has landed into Birmingham, there is a system by which the engineer out there, because I do not think we have Air India engineers there, we would have outsourced this to a local engineering company. He will look at what is the minimum equipment list. The RAT is deployed. What is the procedure to be followed? What is the clearance procedure to be followed? That procedure would have been carried out. The RAT would have been restored back into the fuselage of the aircraft, and the aircraft would have been dispatched. Okay, so this is the procedure that at which this RAT deployment would have been treated at Birmingham. In addition to the incidents that you just mentioned, there was also another incident in which a 787 was dispatched under a certain MEL. It experienced what we call GPS spoofing or GPS jamming over Russian airspace. And it experienced a system by which the autopilot stripped at 39,000 feet. Now, the system of autopilots, there are three autopilots on the 787, and we do not know as to whether one autopilot is working or the other autopilot is working or the third autopilot is working, simply because there is no indication in the cockpit. But if the autopilots are getting an invalid command, then the autopilots would trip. It says that the inputs that I'm getting are not matching with my own logic, and therefore it is not safe for me to engage. So the autopilots would trip. Subsequent to this autopilot tripping at 39,000 feet on their way back to Delhi, I believe it was a Vienna-Delhi flight, they could not re-engage the autopilots, which meant that whatever was the electrical signal that is going to the autopilot was invalid. So the system logic of the autopilot says, I cannot engage in these conditions. And subsequently, the aircraft had to be flown manually all the way and diverted to Dubai, where it carried out a safe landing. So
I think we have that headline. It was diverted to Dubai. It was diverted to Dubai. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is there's been a series of incidents related either to the FADEC, either to the EEC, or related to systems that have triggered off the RAT. And in addition to that, I also had read a news article of some lawyers or aviation-related lawyers that were raising this issue on behalf of the families that that had relatives on board Air India 171. In fact, go ahead. On which they spoke about water leakage issues.
Exactly.
Yes.
So now we have the entire electronic bay that is situated just below the cockpit, at one level below the cockpit.
Yes.
Now, do keep in mind that the forward galley is in that area. You've got chillers in that area. You've got warmers in that area. You've got one toilet in that area. All of which, why I'm highlighting this is that all of these contain water. And water, if it leaks and if it goes through, it is going to come down onto the electronic bay. And the electronic bay is actually the brain of the aircraft, where it has all the computers that control the various systems on board. Everything is controlled from the electronic bay. And you can just imagine what will be the reaction between water and electronics. Okay, so this issue had been flagged by Boeing also earlier. Certain checks had been carried out, but this is also one of the indications, one of the problems that the Dreamliner has faced, which probably has not got the requisite amount of attention that it deserved. Overall, I
Yeah.
think that there is an issue with the aircraft, some of which have been highlighted, some of which have not been highlighted. The aircraft has flown safely for 13 years. Air India 171 was the first major accident of the 787. There's never been any incidents before, but over a period of time, even software has to be revisited. Like I do remember there was a time in which I was flying out of Vienna. We had a problem on board, and then finally we had to call engineering support back in India and wake up that guy in the morning. And what he suggested was something remarkable. He said, just switch off everything, let the aircraft go completely dead, and then restart again. It's something like rebooting your computer. And effectively, that's what we did. And then suddenly all
Yeah.
systems came back.
So, so let me ask you.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to recap a few of the issues that have been listed by you. One is, of course, we know that the rat deployed suddenly on an Amritsar Birmingham flight. Then you have spoken about the autopilot tripping on a Vienna Delhi sector, right, or a Delhi Vienna sector. I don't know which one it is, but the plane got diverted. Vienna, Delhi, and the plane then gets diverted to Dubai. Then there is the water leakage, which is, by the way, if I'm not wrong, has been an airworthiness directive by FAA also, and we have covered it. And in fact, the lawyer who's representing the families and suing Boeing has spoken about it in an interview to us. And we are told that the very aircraft on which this rat had deployed has experienced another problem, causing a significant delay in its operations. This is not official yet. This is what sources are telling us. I want to end, Captain Panicker, with what you said. You said, as someone who's flown the plane, that yes, the aircraft has flown safely for 13 years, but maybe the software needs an update. Maybe things need upgradation. And therefore, do you support the FIP letter to the Civil Aviation Minister that the 787 fleet should be grounded for now?
I am trying to say that the solutions lie with Boeing. They are the original equipment manufacturer. They have literally made thousands of planes. They made thousands of aircraft that fly with the fly-by-wire system. This is the first, we call it the electric jetliner. I've flown it for 10 years. Okay. It's a fantastic aircraft. Okay. But there are issues which have been coming up. So I would say that we need to involve Boeing in it. We need to tell them that, look, boss, there are things that are happening. The things that are happening that are not comfortable. There are things that can lead to a wider range of possibilities. We should not wait for something like, like what happened in Air India 171 to, just to sit back and then react.
Yeah.
Because then that would be reminiscent of the MAX crashes. If you
That's
remember, for the first crash, there were insinuations made about the pilot. He's of Indian origin. He doesn't know how to fly. He did this. He did that. It took the second crash for them to realize that it was beyond the control of anybody. Okay, if you did not know how to disconnect the particular system, which Boeing had not shared with the airlines at that particular point in time, if they had not taken that particular action, it was literally death by computer, in which the aircraft knows was going to be forced on for a period of 8 to 9 seconds or 7 to 8 seconds. I forget the figure. And there was nothing that you could do after that, unless you disconnected the stabilizer and then manually it took over. You couldn't do anything if that automatic thing took place. So my suggestion is we need to tell Boeing that, look, let's not wait for something like this to happen. Incidents are happening all over. What is it that you, as the original equipment manufacturer, having all this knowledge, having all this capability, that you can do to make Dreamliner flying more safe? Because do keep in mind that there is big money involved. It is extremely convenient to blame a pilot. He's not around to protect himself. He's not around to make a statement. So it is, in fact, I must bring out the preliminary report of the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. Shoddily made, shoddily written, open to innuendo, language which is, is neither here nor there. It's not official Air Force language. Do keep in mind that most of these people were ex-Air Force. Okay, the AIB is almost, it consists all of ex-Air Force people. The language that was used, insinuations that were made, and finally, broad brush treatment saying that, in our opinion, aircraft is safe. In our opinion, the engines are safe.
Yeah.
You have all the details available with you. They just came out with this because mandatorily by law they had to come out within 30 days with a preliminary report. I don't think it was very well written at all. I don't think it was, even meeting the standards of a preliminary report.
I want to end by going back to where we started. The fact that this aging, ailing father of Captain Sumeet Sabharwal is now at this stage of his life getting ready for a prolonged legal battle. His writ petition is ready for the Supreme Court. He'll try his luck possibly after the court break, comes back after the Diwali holidays. It isn't going to be much of a Diwali for him. And for all the families of those who died on board, what do you want people of this country who may have already moved on from this crash because public memory is so short-lived to understand about this father's battle, but also the rights of all families and relatives of all those who died in that crash to know the truth?
See, it's extremely sad that this aged gentleman is having to go through all this. It is extremely, it just shows what a disturbed state of mind this elderly gentleman is in. And this, I would say, has been exacerbated by the arrival of those two, officials ostensibly from the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, who tried to insinuate that your son had these problems. And I do not think that the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau had, sent them officially at all. So in what context they've reached there, who authorized them, and what they were trying to insinuate, I have really no idea. But I would say that is extremely unprofessional. They had no business doing this sort of a thing. And if at all something had to come out with it, it was something like building up a narrative. Okay, the narrative has already been started off by the AIIB, reinstated or reinforced by Boeing, who's very happy, just sitting back and saying, let all the 1,200 Dreamliners fly. Because if those 1,200 Dreamliners are grounded, I'm losing $500 million every day.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is big money involved, there is convenience involved, the pilots that are there. All that I can say is that I have my extreme sympathies towards Sumeet's dad. Nobody should have to go through this at this age. I only hope that whoever the authorities that are there, the justices that are there, see merit in his writ application, and wiser minds than us take the correct decision.
Absolutely. I do hope that somebody in the government picks up the phone and talks to him, the aviation minister maybe. Why not? He's a man in pain, as are so many families this Diwali, when the rest of the country will be celebrating for those who lost their lives on Air India 171, leaving behind floods of grief. This isn't going to be a week of celebration. So spare a thought for them. Spare a thought for this 91-year-old man who's fighting for justice, but also for the truth. The truth not just about his son, but also the truth that everybody else has the right to know. Thank you so much, Captain Panicker. Always appreciate your time. Thank you so much and take care.
Thank you, Barkha.
Bye-bye.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.